What up, everybody? And welcome to the Week 18 Fantasy Flex Props podcast presented by PrizePicks. I am your host, Chris Raybon, joined as always by my dude, Sean Koerner, the top 10 most accurate analyst, Sean Koerner. Congratulations. For the first time in 4 years, you dusted me. I think I had you, 2 years in a row. I beat you by one spot. And this time I just fell off. A little too aggressive coming down the stretch, but you win some, you lose some. But congratulations in this really difficult season too. It's really a great accomplishment, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Glad to be back in the top 10. I think it's been a couple of years since I've been there, so it's good to remember that my projections can be good sometimes. I agree. It was a really tough season. I mean, every time we're doing this pod, we're wondering who's playing and all this stuff. So huge shout out to friend of the pod, Jeff Ratcliffe, who took it down this year. Just a really incredible feat. It's so hard to win. This year there was like 173, 200 experts. Like, let me tell you, people, it's really hard to do good in this contest because everybody in it, we all respect and, they work hard. So just taking it down is just a massive accomplishment. So huge shout out to our boy, Jeff Ratcliffe.
Yeah, congrats, Jeff. He's a great dude. Like I got a chance to spend time with him at, when used to go to those fantasy conferences. Haven't been to one in a couple of years, due to COVID and whatnot, but great dude.
Yep.
But yeah, congrats to you, congrats to him, congrats to everybody else that finished highly and where they wanted to. For this pod, we got a really great pod here. So week 18 is one of the best prop betting weeks, probably the best, I would say, of the year. Yeah, the best. So, and that's because there are player incentives and milestones and all these things. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the normal pod. We're going to have the showdown breakdown for Sunday night. We're going to have our top 10, but at the end, we'll spend some extra time going through some other incentives that and milestones that we're aware of that could impact the prop betting market that you can look out for if we didn't cover them in our top 10. So be sure to stick around for that because I think it's going to be valuable information here. There's just so many moving parts and things that could happen that, especially if you like overs too, because this is, it's the over week as well, because guys are aiming for those incentives. So really, really great prop betting week. So a lot to cover. Let's get into it with the showdown slate for Sunday night. We got the Chargers at the Raiders, a battle for the what looks like a playoff spot and looks like the sole playoff spot between these two teams, with Kansas City already in, Denver already eliminated. So but I will say this, Sean, Stuckey put me onto a pretty hilarious potential scenario. So if the Colts lose, I believe that the Raiders and Chargers could both get in if they tie.
Oh man.
Regardless of what happens at Pittsburgh, Baltimore. So like there could be a situation where if the Colts get upset, these teams could just kneel down for 60 minutes.
That's not going to happen. The Colts are just going to give Jonathan Taylor the ball until the game is sealed. Like there's no way. Right. I mean, so clip this later when the Colts lose because Carson Wentz threw another left-handed pick six or something. But that would be hilarious though. Like the NFL would love that, I'm sure, but I just don't think there's any way the Colts falter here against the Jaguars. I mean, you've been watching as many Jaguar games as me, right? Like
all of them.
They are just awful. So
I think they'll show up. I think they'll show up this week though. Like I don't think this is the week, like, kind of off topic, but kind of on topic, I guess, because still betting is prop betting and all that. But like the teams with nothing to play for tend to show up this week. So it's like, will the Colts cover their 15 and a half spread? Probably not. It could be tougher, but we'll talk about Taylor. But just wanted to throw that out there that this could be a wonky game. But no, both of these teams should be playing hard. Should be for one playoff spot here. So who do you like in the captain spot?
The Chargers have all the options, Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen. I think, the sneaky play here would be Mike Williams. He certainly has more touchdown upside than Keenan Allen. So one game slate like this, I think Mike Williams is probably my captain play. Also, Austin Eckler, this is a spot where they can lean on him heavily. It seems like they've been limiting his rush attempts all season. So this is a spot we could see 15 plus carries from him. And of course, his receiving usage. So I think Mike Williams and Austin Eckler are the guys I'm going to key in on the Chargers side. And also, the Raiders, they have two players, I think, are probably going to be under roster in the captain slot. The first is Josh Jacobs. This is essentially a playoff game if, the Jaguars lose to the Colts. So, I could see them leaning on Josh Jacobs heavily here. And, the Chargers ranked dead last in run DVOA. So this is a great matchup for Jacobs. He's really the true workhorse back for the Raiders right now. He's had 4+ catches in 6 of the past 9 games. So there's no reason not to like Josh Jacobs here. So I think he could be seen in the captain slot. And we'll have to see what's up with Darren Waller. He could return here. Even if he's not 100%, like he has, captain like upside. So he could be under rostered here. So I'll be looking at Darren Waller as well.
Yeah, Waller's interesting. He did come off the COVID list. They're saying he's going to play and gut it out here. Maybe he's used more as a decoy, so maybe that opens things up more for a guy like Renfro again. Mm-hmm. We kind of have to see where Waller's health is at. Yeah. Monitor the practice reports, but I like the Mike Williams call a lot because the Raiders play the most zone defense in the league, and Mike Williams averages 2.2 yards per route against zone coverage. That's actually more than Keenan Allen, who's at 1.74, according to Pro Football Focus. So Mike Williams in these kind of matchups cooks. And I like Herbert as well in this spot. I think this could be a monster Herbert game. He really rips up these, single high safety defenses. And the Texans a couple weeks ago, remember, they're a 2 high safety look and they upset the Chargers and Herbert looked sloppy. But earlier in the year, they played this Raider team and Herbert just cooked. I mean, I think his final stat line with the yardage was only like 222 because they got up, but he had 3 touchdowns. I think he started the game on like a completion streak. So I think Herbert shows up here, which, also puts Allen obviously in the mix. But yeah, I think that Herbert Williams stack is a good one. And for the Raiders, yeah, I agree. I think it's Josh Jacobs. I mean, they have to lead on him regardless. I don't think they want Carr throwing it up a ton in this kind of game just because I think the Chargers offense is going to have success. So they're probably going to want to kind of limit that by keeping Jacobs on the field and running the ball and bleeding the clock. What about for your DFS cheat codes?
Yeah, so for the cheat codes, it's going to be guys just slightly under the radar. So on the Chargers side, I'm still trying to figure out which one of these two I'll have more exposure to. But, a guy like Jalen Guyton or Josh Palmer, like either one of those guys can make a huge catch here and break the slate. So I think those are the guys they'll be keying on. Like you said, Justin Herbert tears up zone. I have like in my spreadsheet which guys excel better against man versus zone, and like all the Chargers are bright green. So that just tells me that it's really Justin Herbert that tears it up. So, like Guyton, he's certainly benefited in matchups like this. So I might have more shares of Guyton, but either one of those receivers I think is in play. We'll have to see what's up with the tight ends, but yeah, like Jared Cook is certainly in play, but these 1-game slates, the Trey McKitties and Steven Andersons of the world are also in play. So, those are guys I'll be keying on as well. The Raiders, it's too top heavy. So, a guy like Hunter Renfro, like you said, if Darren Waller is active, maybe Renfro's, rostership is down, and that's going to, be like a buy low opportunity on him kind of. Zay Jones, love Zay Jones. But there isn't too many under the radar guys. Like I said, there's both these teams are kind of top heavy. So I'm probably just sticking with, Waller, Renfro, Jacobs on the Raiders side, but on the Chargers side, I think the cheat codes are these ancillary receivers, Palmer and Guyton.
Yeah. And specifically Guyton, I think, so I'm looking at the yards per route versus, zone versus man this year. Guyton has 1.5 versus zone and 0.5 versus man. But Palmer, he has just 0.98 versus zone, 1.8 versus man. So he's doubly good against man coverage. So it seems like Guyton, is that guy that when they get those zone coverages, he's the guy that kind of steps up a little more. So of those two, I really like Guyton. And then, yeah, Jared Cook, I think, remember the first matchup, the Chargers also used a tight end a ton in that matchup. Yeah. I think they had 3 different tight ends catch a touchdown, if I'm not mistaken.
Parham was one of them.
Yeah, I believe Parham, Anderson, and Cook each caught touchdowns. Yeah. Let me double check that. But yeah, it was a big day for their tight ends. Let's see. Yeah, Cook got one, Parham got one, and oh no, and Eckler got one. So Anderson didn't get one, but Anderson got a 34-yard catch. So
Of
yeah,
course.
the tight ends were heavily involved in that game plan there. And yeah, Allen only had 36 yards on 7 catches and 11 targets. Mike Williams only had 1 catch on a 4 targets for 11 yards. I still like Williams, but yeah, it could be a tight end heavy game plan for the Chargers in this one. So like that one, but.
How about Deshaun Jackson? Like nothing stands out here. Obviously, he's always in play for a big touchdown, but it seems like the Chargers are more willing to concede, rushing yards to Josh Jacobs than they are allowing a deep ball to Deshaun Jackson. Right? This isn't a good spot for him.
I mean, if the Chargers defense looks like it has some of these last few weeks,
true.
Yeah, maybe, but they're kind of they're 17th in deep pass DVOA, so it's not been really bad. It's been kind of average, not as good as they would like. I don't mind Jackson because, like you said, there aren't many options on the Raiders. I think Zay Jones will be very popular as that kind of cheapest option on the Raiders. So Bryan Edwards, I mean, his snaps are down. You can't really trust him. He just doesn't get separation, and so that kind of leaves Jackson as the only other guy, especially if Waller's going to come back. You're not really going to be able to use Foster Moreau. So yeah, I think he's that one guy. Any showdown slate, I think you play
exactly
Jackson. So
yep.
And who knows what he signed mid-season, so they're probably not, but who knows what his contract incentives are. I haven't seen anything, but wouldn't, veteran like that, you wouldn't be surprised if he had a little extra incentive there. So yeah, I like that Deshaun call. All right. Let's get into our top 10 props of the week. Sean, start us off with quarterback.
So I'm sticking with my Taylor Heinicke under 200.5 passing yards against the Giants. Passing yard props can be tricky because, there's such a wide range of outcomes compared to rushing props or receiving props. So I'm looking for any edge I can. And when an in-game benching is a real possibility, and by say real, I mean like just 5 to 10% chance Kyle Allen might play some in the fourth quarter, that offers some edge for, taking the under here. And, even if Heinicke plays the entire game, he's gone under this number in 3 of the past 4 games. The football team is a very run heavy team. They're facing the Giants, who are being forced to start Jake Fromm here. So Heinicke might not have to throw that much in order to win. So there's multiple angles why I like this, but just the chances of Kyle Allen getting some playing time in this really, lowers his floor. But I understand there's some incentives I need to worry about when it comes to Heinicke.
Yeah. So my understanding is that if he plays 60% of the snaps in this game and gets a win, he unlocks some contract incentives. So I think, at least he's going to be incentivized. Yeah. And they shouldn't have a problem winning this game, given Jake Fromm is starting. But it is something to kind of keep in mind here. But, they might, like you said, they might pull him in the fourth. He only needs 60%. So it's not a major concern. It's in all likelihood, I think we do see some Kyle Allen, to close out the year.
Yeah, so the incentives aren't great for me, but still, like you said, if he plays 3 quarters, they lean on Antonio Gibson, Jared Patterson, run heavy game plan. They go up 20-0. It's the fourth quarter. Like, I don't expect the Giants to put up many points. Like, he could hit his incentive and I hit this prop. So I think it's going to be a win-win situation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if they don't win the game, it would be great. That would be the only thing that would kind of mess it up if they're like trailing, but I highly doubt that. Yeah, I think they're really motivated. After Joe Judge made his comments.
Jake Fromm got benched for Mike Glennon,
who threw for 24 yards last week.
Yes.
Yeah. Like I saw the stat line and I was like thinking something was missing from my data. Like I thought like the Giants used another quarterback for the rest of the game. And I'm just like, wait, no, it was just all Glennon. Cause like usually you hear like both of them come in. It's like I'm watching these games and it's just like, they're both in there. And I'm like, wait, where's Jake Fromm's game log?
I did the same thing. Like I was importing data and I was like, wait, that's an error. And I looked and nope, that's correct. 27 yards. So yeah, like the Giants could be, helping the football team run out the clock too here. So that's only going to help the prop even more.
For my quarterback prop, I'm going with Justin Herbert over 265.5 passing yards. I know he didn't clear it in the first matchup against the Raiders, but he has done so in 10 of 16 games this year. And as I mentioned, he kills these non-cover 2 defenses. He's great against zone defenses. He averages over a yard per attempt more against zone defenses. So in this, playoff kind of environment here, I think he is a good bet to go over this. Remember, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams combined for just 47 yards in the first matchup between these two teams. I think that's an outlier. So you give them their normal, even anything close to their normal averages. And I think Herbert goes over because I think he's going to be very efficient against this Raider D. So going Justin Herbert over 265.5 passing yards.
Yeah, this one stood out as well. Like his market has been in this range the past couple weeks. Week 16, it dropped to 265 because Keenan Allen was out. And then last week they were facing, Drew Lock and missing 2 of his top receivers. So they were favored to win that game pretty significantly. So like this week, it should be up closer to that 275, 280 yards that we're used to projecting him in a must-win game. So yeah, this stuck out to me as well, just being too low. I'm projecting him closer to like 280.
Yeah, I have him even a little higher than that, just for the matchup.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think his season average is about 289, so he's been effective.
Yep.
All right, we're going for your first running back prop.
So I'm going on the other side in this game. I'm going with Josh Jacobs over 50.5 rushing yards against the Chargers. So the Chargers, the run defense ranks dead last in DVOA. They practically invite the run. And, I think the Raiders are going to lean on Josh Jacobs here because this is essentially a playoff game. There's no reason to hold back right now. And he's been their clear workhorse back, all season. So this is a game where I would not be surprised if he sees 20 plus rush attempts. Just 50 yards is too low. Most of the time, the Chargers have allowed 16 different running backs this season at top 50 yards. So this is just a no-brainer bet for me. I'm projecting Jacobs closer to 65. And I just think he has a really high floor here. So Love is over 50.5 rushing yards.
Yeah, I mean, running backs against the Chargers, it's kind of like an auto play at this point. The only thing that really could hurt Jacobs is if they get down in the game quickly, which, always a possibility. But even with that, I mean, then he'll probably just get some easy, 8-yard draw play type situations. Because, they're not really playing the guys behind him too much anymore. They're giving him a lot of snaps nowadays with Drake out. For my running back prop, let's go with my guy, Rex Burkhead. Over 40.5 rushing yards against the Titans. He's been over this in each of the last 3 games. And I'm starting to think I know why. The Texans, obviously, bad team, but team with a lot of veterans, more than typical for a kind of bottom feeding team that's in rebuild mode. Rex Burkhead being one of those guys. So Rex Burkhead needs 103 total yards to unlock a $125K contract incentive. And he's also just playing for his next contract, in the week. So I think it's no coincidence that he's gone over this number each of the last 3 games, despite this, team, obviously not a very good run blocking team, but they're just kind of feeding him. And I've been pointing that out these last few weeks on the pod. And I think it continues here. This is Houston's Super Bowl. I think they have a good shot at, making things tough for Tennessee. Remember last year, Tennessee had a must win against the Texans, and Watson, I believe, was playing, and they Texans got up and forced the Titans to kind of play comeback mode the whole game. And it was like a 41-38 game. So I think you could see really crazy things happen in this Houston Tennessee matchup. It happens every year. So either way, I think they feed Burkhead and get him over, try to get him close to that 103 total yards, which means in all likelihood, he gets over 40.5 rushing yards. So like the Burkhead over for the 4th straight game, I think he goes over this number.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've been the Burkhead whisperer for over a month now, it seems. So I'm not going to argue here. If he does hit this, you have to buy a Rex Burkhead jersey with your winnings.
Right.
Like you have to promise me that. You have to, because you've been calling it. He's been tearing it up. So yeah, I'm not going to debate. Over 40.5 rushing yards seems easy in this spot. Should be a lock for 15 plus carries, right? Like,
yeah, at this point,
he doesn't have to be that efficient to clear it. So yeah, very high floor.
Yeah, I've been looking for a Texans jersey. It's one of the few teams I don't have a jersey for. I had my eye on like a JJ Watt, but I mean, hey, Rex
you
Burkhead,
gotta go with Burkhead.
Why not? You can't do the Watson after what happened. So
no, you can't.
I mean, you can, but probably cancelable. All right, let's go with what's your second running back prop?
So I'm going Devin Singletary over 59.5 rushing yards against the Jets. So, he's the clear lead back for the Bills. He set his career high in rush attempts in week 15 with 22, only to top that again last week with 23 carries against the Falcons. So they're clearly leaning on Singletary heading into the playoffs. This is a matchup where they're going to lean on him again against the Jets. And I'm hearing that there could be inclement weather in Buffalo. So I'm not factoring that in my projection this early, but that's only going to help. So right now, I'm projecting Singletary closer to 67.5 rushing yards, but that would only go up if, weather's going to be a concern and they're going to lean on the run a bit more. They did that last week with the snowy conditions against the Falcons. So again, this is another great spot for Singletary to go over his rushing prop.
Yeah, and this could be a win game. It might not end up raining, but there looks like there could be 15 to 20 mile per hour winds. And remember how the wind affects like that passing game. We saw that against the Patriots. Josh Allen's outside the top 20 in adjusted completion percentage. So he kind of struggles if the balls can't get there where he's trying to put them. So I do think they lead on a run here. For my second running back prop, I'm going with Jonathan Taylor over 115.5 rushing yards against the Jaguars. So Taylor needs 266 for 2,000, and that's actually probably doable for Jonathan Taylor. Yeah. I mean, obviously the Colts are going to try to win the game. So, if that kind of comes in between that, maybe he doesn't get it, but them winning a game is reliant on feeding Jonathan Taylor. So the Jaguars are down to 23rd in run defense DVOA after being pretty average most of the year. But Taylor may end up doubling this just in pursuit of that record. He's averaging 136 yards over his last 8 games. So 115.5 last game of the season, outside shot at 2,000. I think you got to bang the over here for Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, love it. I always say bet on Jonathan Taylor over against bad teams. And he's essentially become the new Derrick Henry. Over 100 rushing yards in each of the past 4 games with 1 reception total combined the past 4 games. So what does Derrick Henry always do? Run all over the Jaguars. So love it. And some of these incentives are laughable. And his 266 yards. That's almost laughable, but not with Jonathan Taylor. He could absolutely do that here against the Jaguars. I could see him breaking a couple of long runs. So yeah, 115.5 does seem a bit high, but just given the situation, it's definitely an over bet for me as well.
And if I remember correctly, Derrick Henry in 2020 came into the final game needing 223, I think, to get to 2,000 entering the last game. He got 250. This was last year. Yep. Yeah. And the Titans needed to win the game. So, don't discount these like kind of out there records, like you're saying. Like it's laughable for most people, not for the new Derrick Henry. So, yeah.
Exactly.
All right, where are you going with your first receiving prop?
So I'm going with Justin Jefferson over 75.5 receiving yards against the Bears. This is the line he had last week with Sean Mannion under center. But with Kirk Cousins back, this should be closer to, the low 90s. He's averaged 102 yards in the 3-game stretch without Adam Thielen. So with Kirk Cousins back under center, I'm projecting him closer to 88.5. He doesn't really have incentives, but he's Justin Jefferson, could catch a couple deep balls here. Like this prop is just a bit too low. And this seems like a spillover of last week's prop with Sean Mannion. So I don't know why they didn't adjust it up, but this seems, 15 yards too low right now.
The Bears play man coverage at a top 5 rate. Justin Jefferson is 6th of 103 qualifiers at wide receiver with 3.35 yards per route versus man coverage. No other Vikings wideout or tight end averages more than a yard per route against man coverage. So Justin Jefferson averages more than 3 times as many yards per route as any other Vikings wide receiver or tight end against man coverage, which the Bears play at a top 5 rate. So yeah, this could be one of those stat padding games.
Yes.
Justin Jefferson.
Yep.
For my first receiving prop, talk about stat padding. We got to go with Cooper Kupp here over 120.5 receiving yards against San Francisco. Remember, he needs 136 to break Calvin Johnson's record. Also believe he needs 12 receptions to break the single season record.
Yeah, he needs 11. He needs 11 to tie Michael Thomas, 12 to break it.
Yeah, so 12 for 136 breaks both records. And they're facing the 49ers, and I like the 49ers in this game. They're 5 for 5 in their last 5 against the Rams in terms of winning straight up. But the Niners allow the most schedule adjusted receiving yards per game to opposing number 1 wide receivers. So this is the perfect matchup for Cooper Kupp to put up numbers. And remember, in the first matchup against the 49ers, he put up 122 yards on 11 catches. So well within reach. He would literally need one more catch for 14 yards on top of what he did last game to break 2 records. I think that's highly doable for Cooper Kupp. So going over 120 and a half.
Yeah, obviously you stole this one from me. We were taking the over 135 and a half.
Yeah.
On Tuesday's pod. So yeah, this line's too low. It's not that ridiculous for Kupp to go over 120 and a half, but especially when he's seeking a record. So yeah, this is just a smash spot for Kupp. And yeah, we already said we would bet this up to 135 and a half because we think he's going to break it. So I think you're getting at least 20 yards of value here.
Yeah, it's only Thursday, and I've already reached my max bet allotment on PrizePicks. Like they literally, I tried to add Kupp to another entry, and they were like, no, you can't win any more money than this on any one player. Like I've already maxed out my Cooper Kupp on PrizePicks for the week. So yeah, that's where I'm at with Kupp. Where are you going with your second receiving prop?
So I'm going Darnell Mooney over 49 and a half receiving yards against the Vikings. I'm projecting this closer to 58 and a half with Justin Fields out due to COVID. Andy Dalton's under center. I'm not saying Andy Dalton's a better quarterback, but, they're a little bit more pass heavy with him because, he's not going to opt to pull it and run and scramble. He's going to throw it to Darnell Mooney. So it does give Mooney maybe 1 or 2 more chances a game with Dalton under center. And as you'll talk about later on, he has an incentive to get to 71 yards. So a situation like this, I think that definitely comes into play. So the fact that I already like the over and he has the incentive, that's when I lock in a bet like this. So I love Mooney over 49.5 receiving yards. And the fact that this game is being played in Minnesota and not in Chicago means it's going to be an indoor game. So this week we won't have to worry about weather. So this could be, a sneaky shootout between Justin Jefferson and Darnell Mooney.
Yeah, this is one of those games where I think it's just all going to be about stat padding. And the Vikings, they have a pretty good linebacking core, good safeties, but they're top 12 in DVOA against backs and tight ends, but bottom 20 versus number 1 receiver, number 2 receivers, non-number 1, number 2 receivers. So this is a good spot. And Moody, it's not an incentive per se. It's just a milestone. He would get to 1,000 with 71 yards. Yeah. So some are milestones, some are incentives. But for a young player, this would be his first 1,000 yard season. Mm-hmm. So I think that's going to be reasonably important to him. Especially he's already their number 1 receiver at this point. So I think it's going to be doable to kind of try to get him there. So yeah, love this over. I've already put this in a few entries as well. All right. My second receiving prop, let's go for another record. Mark Andrews over 69.5 receiving yards against the Steelers. He needs 141 to break the single season tight end record. So, this game, regardless of who wins, it might be moot in terms of the playoffs if the Colts can win. So I still think there's going to be a little bit of that element of kind of, Ben's last game, potentially Andrews could get a record. I think you might see some loose playing here between these two teams. So he's gone over this in the last 4 games, 115, 136, 125, 89. So I think he has a good shot to keep it going here. And when you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, their weakest position in terms of DVOA is the tight end position. They're 17th. They're pretty solid across the board. The top 10 against top 2 receiver spots, but their weakest position, the only position they are below average against, is the tight end position. So this sets up really well for Mark Andrews there.
Yeah, and if Lamar's held out again as Tyler Huntley, it's good. I'm gonna raise my projection for Andrews. So love this. And last season when I didn't finish in the top 10 for the Fantasy Pros contest, I blamed it on constantly having Ryan Tannehill ranked too low. This year, the reason I didn't finish first, I'm blaming myself, ranking Mark Andrews too low almost every week. Once Lamar went down, I dropped him outside my top 5, whatever. So I'm done underrating Mark Andrews. Give me the over here as well.
To recap the props, Sean is going with Taylor Heinicke under 200.5 passing yards. And you didn't say Tyler Heinicke all podcast. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, that was obviously I know his name.
First
Whenever
place,
that happens,
Heinicke.
I have too many thoughts in my head.
Josh Jacobs over 50.5 rushing yards against the Chargers. Devin Singletary over 59.5 rushing yards against the Jets. Justin Jefferson over 75.5 receiving yards against the Bears, and Darnell Mooney over 49.5 receiving yards against the Vikings. I'm going Justin Herbert over 265.5 passing yards against the Raiders. Rex Burkhead, my guy, over 40.5 rushing yards against the Titans. Jonathan Taylor over 115.5 rushing yards against the Jags. Cooper Kupp over 120.5 receiving yards against the Niners, and Mark Andrews over 69.5 receiving yards against Pittsburgh.